Brighter Light, Darker Shadow by Backing into Infinity, read by Oak Shadow 5. This episode contains chapter 24 and 25, so let's get right into chapter 24, New Turmoil. Summary: Tomura shakes things up in the criminal world and puts down some dusty noobs. Also, there's a trigger warning for this chapter. It contains violence, blood, and death. And there's also a specific trigger warning for emotional manipulation, beginning at another swipe of his hand dissolves a door, and ending at Tomura turns to his phone. So if you need to click off to avoid those triggers, please do. Shigaraki Tomura surveys the large mansion in front of him calmly. The past month since his failure at the USJ had been brutal, with Sensei putting him through relentless training and lessons. In addition to countless hours spent in combat, Sensei had finally started teaching him the actual lessons of leadership. All of Tomura's suffering had culminated here. He had a squad of hand-picked and personally recruited men that he had gathered with his own skills after Sensei's lessons. He had 2 powerful A-rank villains in addition to himself and Kurogiri. And he had all the motivation and fervor in the world. In short, his party was absolutely min-maxed through the roof. He swiped his hand across the side wall of the mansion, and it crumbles into dust smoothly, his decay slightly spreading from the initial contact site to create a hole a meter wide. Tomura's quest journal, as he liked to refer to the intelligence reports he received as, informed him that the girl was held on the lowest floor under a rotating guard, and that half of the Shihasakai were out today supervising a test of their new brand of trigger. Tomura waves his hand, and a skill squad rushes through the door. A press of the button triggers his berserker, and Muscular roars as he smashes through the front door and begins killing. The forces of the mansion flow towards the disturbance at the front door, and Tomura, Kurogiri, and Moonfish have a relatively uncontested walk through the mansion. The opposition they do encounter is swiftly dispatched, a mixture of blood, dust, and fading mist left behind them, the only evidence of what were once healthy Yakuza members. Tomura's phone pings as the leader of his kill squad sends him a photo of Mimic and Shindemoto's cooling corpses beside the mansion's main servers. He smiles, pleased with the collection of the secondary quest loot. Who said NPCs couldn't be useful in great numbers? A wave of his hand and a quick word has Kurogiri transporting the squad back to base, their numbers only slightly depleted. He had learned his lesson at the USJ. Men were not disposable tools, and all manpower that could be retained was an asset. Finding personnel willing to work for him after all the goons he had been at the USJ had been a challenge, and Tomura did not intend to repeat the same mistake. Another swipe of his hand dissolves a door and most of the wall behind it, revealing a tiny girl with white hair cowering in the corner. She gasps as she takes in his villainous figure and the cooling bodies of the guards in the corridor. "Hello, Eri," Tomura says gently, holding his hands up peacefully. "Would you like to join my party?" Don't come any closer," the young girl shouts, stopping the villain's advance. "I'm cursed. If you touch me, you go away forever." "That may be, but your friend Kurogiri here is quite resistant to touch by his quirks." Tomura gestures to the misty bartender with a grin. "And my sensei can take your curse away with no difficulty at all. You just have to come with us." Suitably convinced, the traumatized young girl lets herself be placed on Kurogiri's shoulders for a piggyback ride. As they step out of the room, the Mistman takes advantage of the larger hallway to warp himself away to get her settled, the main objective achieved. Tomura turns to his phone to find an update from Muscular, informing him that the remaining members of the 8 precepts had been neutralized, but the man himself was stuck waiting for Hari Kurono's quirk to wear off. A wet substance splatters Tomura, and he dodges backwards instinctively while tossing his phone to the floor. This action saves his life, and he whirls to face a furious overhaul, the blood of Moonfish still coating his clothes and every inch of the hallway between them. "Where is she?" The leader of the Shihasakai screams, his eyes burning with rage. "Oh, the girl? Unfortunately, your princess is in another castle now," Tomura says with a smile, pleased beyond belief that his final objective had opted to come to him instead of run. The loss of Moonfish was a shame, but the cannibal was barely controllable in the first place, so maybe that too was a benefit. "Bring her back, foolish boy!" Overhaul shouted again, slamming his bare hand into the wall and sending a wave of spikes towards Tomura. "And maybe I'll spare your filthy diseased life for one more second!" Tomura casually swept spikes away, a wave of rock no match for the horrors Sensei had thrown at him in their personal training matches. He carefully cracks each knuckle as he takes a step backwards, locking eyes with Overhaul and letting a wet smirk cover his face. "You see, Overhaul, you think you may have me on the ropes, but you lack vision." Tomura advances, dragging his fingers along the wall and letting a trench crumble out of it, the dust falling behind him and swirling through the air. We are both dex builds, you know, and both min-max in the Death Touch class, a true rogue/assassin hybrid. Overhaul just snarls, a spike sprouting from the floor, 2 more accompanying it from the walls. Tomura slaps them down, the speed of his decay accelerating until the very ground where Overhaul was touching to make the pillars starts to disintegrate and the man is forced to pull his hands back and retreat a step down the hallway. The difference between us is how we apply it. You use your quirk on the environment and to heal yourself. I admire the versatility of your build. It makes you practically an adventuring party unto yourself. You supplement this with a death touch that lets you take down even stronger opponents. Tomura slams a hand against the wall, a wave of decay spreading along it with an ominous whoosh as several meters of concrete turned dust. The purple line stopped just short of Overhaul as the Yakuza boss hops back another few feet. But the quality aspect of your build betrays you. It is min-maxed, and in the past, broad builds with lots of utility flourished. Sensei is the prime example of that, but you don't know him. However, ever since the last patch dropped and Omid crippled Sensei with a pure strength build, the meta has changed to single stat allotments. Tomura dashed forwards, hands tapping surfaces as he races by and leaving deadly pools behind him to spread more decay. He swipes at Overhaul and the man stumbles back frantically, totally on the defense now. Behind them, the hallway collapses with a crash. My build is opens and dexterity. I don't have enough vigor to withstand even one of your hits, and you can see how wimpy my strength is. I'm no long-range caster either. Decay has been and always will be an on-contact incantation, but my focus gives me combat power. As Sensei says, you would rather face the man who practiced 1,000 quirks once than the man who practiced a single quirk 1,000 times. I'm simply too fast for your grab attacks to work, and too nimble for your AoE to catch me. In short, Overhaul, I'm completely spec to choose a shitty outdated build and end the age of Yakuza once and for all. With that final declaration, Tomura snatches Overhaul's wrist out of the air with seeming ease, his hands a blur in the dusty and clouded hallway. The bird-masked man screams in agony as his arms dissolve from his up, and he falls to his knees at Tomura's feet. Be lucky Sensei chose not to collect your quirk, or you would suffer far greater agony than this, Tomura says, laying a hand on Overhaul's head with finality, watching with satisfaction as the kneeling Yakuza dissolves in the dust. Well done, Shigaraki Tomura, Kurigiri says, materializing behind him in response to the signal from Tomura's retrieved phone. You have truly shown yourself a worthy successor today. The ripples from this will take quite some time to settle. Take me back, Kurigiri, Tomura says happily. Let's celebrate this properly at the bar. Collect Muscular on the way. He's too valuable to waste at this junction. As you wish, young master. What did you do with the girl, by the way? I deposited her with Sensei as instructed by him. He sends his regards, by the way. That was chapter 24. Now we'll continue on to chapter 25. New Ultimate Move. Summary. The class returns from camp and gets to work training for the next step. The next week found a class of still exhausted 1A students trudging into Gym Gamma for training, Aizawa already waiting for them.
Alright, class. I know you are still tired from the training camp, but we can't let up on the gas now. The principal has decided to let you all take a provisional licensing exam early, given how promising your growth has been,
Aizawa says, pausing for a moment to let the cheers subside.
To make sure you are ready for what promises to be a brutal exam, we will be building on our work at the camp. When we left off, you were all on the cusp of developing ultimate moves, and we will be continuing in that vein. Here to help us today are ectoplasm and some mentors.
The class split up in the massive gym full of pillars, pairing off with clones to start practicing. Izuku watches as Todoroki tried to ignite his fire at the same time as he was using his eyes, a tactic Monoma had suggested to him as possible during camp. The blonde and peppermint boys had grown even closer during camp, and Izuku couldn't wait until they joined Kachan and Shinzo among the ranks of classmates who could tease for being in a relationship.
Are you going to stop watching your classmates and try something of your own out?
The clown in front of him spoke in ectoplasm's deep voice. I'm not sure what to do, honestly, Izuku says, turning to face him. I don't have a quirk. It isn't like I can develop any ultimate moves.
Nonsense. Of course you can.
How? None of my techniques can really be enhanced, and support gear doesn't exactly count as a move per se.
You need to play to your strength. What are you especially good at?
Apparently being scary?
That's a good start, but it doesn't really have potential as an ultimate move. What else?
I guess everyone says my analysis is really good. That Spine Laser has me in private lessons, Izuku says, tapping his chin. But that is an investigative skill mostly. It doesn't really apply to combat once the fight begins.
Of course, it can. In fact, I think that would make a great ultimate move for you.
What do you mean?
Tell me, Izuku, have you ever heard of predictive reasoning?
Of course, you can make use of previously observed causal connections to make an informed prediction about how something that seems random will react next. It's frequently used in the financial sector and in drawing certain conjectures about criminal behavior patterns.
Well, why don't you use the natural skill at analysis and apply something similar to combat? You predict Bakugo's moves all the time from exposure, right? Is there any reason you can't quickly analyze opponents to get more and more effective at countering during the fight?
No, there isn't. That could totally work. I could even mix in fear tactics as I slowly started to preempt their attacks and pretend I had some sort of foresight. Ectoplasm Sensei, this is genius!
I just reminded you of what you already had. Nothing special. Now, I'm going to start out slow with a simple repetitive attack pattern. When you can consistently call out with my next strikers, we will speed up and get more complex.
Okay. On the other side of the gym, Katsuki stared at the clone in front of him with intense focus. They were placed on the ground to give Katsuki a bit more space, and to not risk his attack's large area of effect hitting someone on a pillar nearby.
So, tell me about what you have so far. I know from Aizawa you're working on a move already at the end of camp,
the clone says, standing before Katsuki. I recently learned how to use the same energy that I use for making sparks appear to power up my muscles. I pretty much got the hang of that move now, although it causes explosive damage to me if I go overboard, Katsuki explains, giving the somewhat shaken excuse for a sudden power-up that he and Omid had decided on. What I want to work on is using explosions while moving at high speeds in unique ways. Right now, they throw off my balance or lag behind me after ignition, so I tend to stop moving quickly to unleash an attack. That won't cut it at the licensing exam, obviously.
You're right, it absolutely won't. Let's start with helping you figure out how to deal with explosions and course corrections. You can already use them for flight. This should come to you fairly intuitively after a bit of effort. I suggest a pirouetting motion could be beneficial. Maybe ask a pink classmate for some breakdancing tips. The clone gestures towards where Mina is working on intensifying her acid spray by clenching her fingers in various shapes. From there, we can work on actually firing an attack while moving quickly. I think close range might be the simplest place to start. Or maybe dashing past an opponent and firing from the back. We can experiment in a lot of ways with whatever time we have left. Katsuki nods, determined to improve and pass his licensing exam. As with the rest of the students, he knew that your performance at the licensing exam was an important part of getting hired for an internship. When most pros didn't attend the actual exam, the Hero Public Safety Commission did write up a report that described the most important actions you took during the exam, and you submitted it as a part of your resume. Katsuki in particular didn't have a lot of connections to land an internship, since Gran Torino was retired, and Ahmed didn't want to announce any public connection to him just yet. So, he needed a stellar result on the exam to help sell himself to agencies now that his sports festival performance was long enough ago to leave the public memory. He powered up one foot and dashed forwards, an explosion starting to crackle in his hand as he prepared to train his heart out. That was chapter 24 and 25 of Bread Light Darker Shadow. I really enjoyed chapter 24 especially, because it was one POV and all of it was Tomura, which we don't get to see that often, and I really liked it. But anyways guys, I hope you all enjoyed these two chapters, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!